Hello, my name is Andrei. I'm here with Alain Cardon, Master Coach of International Coach Federation. So my question is about questions. We talk a lot about questions in coaching, and it's important for us coaches to know your opinion on that.
Okay, well, yes, there's a lot of focus on coaching questions because it's supposed to be the powerful dimension of coaching. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a few things to say about this, but maybe we'll get at some other point. There's two types, basically, I would say, categories of questions. There's the standard questions and then the powerful questions. We can deal with the powerful questions afterwards, but first is a lot of thought to be given about the linguistics in coaching, and more specifically the linguistics in questions, in the standard questions. For instance, you have two types of questions linguistically, which are open questions and closed questions. Mm-hmm. So the open questions obviously are useful in coaching. In other words, if I say, okay, how do you want to proceed? It's an open question. Mm-hmm. Because it's close too, because it's about proceeding, it's not about avoiding. So there is a direction in every question, but there can be more or less focused. And an open opens the field of how you want to proceed. Now, if I asked a closed question, saying, for instance, do you want to stop now or do you want to continue? It's a closed question because it's an alternative. Mm-hmm. And it will lead to making a decision. So closed questions are useful towards at a later point in a coaching process or a sequence when the client has made the inventory through an open question and then will move on to making decisions through closed questions. Mm-hmm. So the closed questions, like in sales, have a better use or more useful when they're towards the end of anything, and open questions are more useful at the beginning. So that's just on those two. Mm-hmm. Now you have also in linguistics is leading questions and neutral questions. Yeah. If I say, well, don't you think this issue will be very difficult to solve? It's a leading question because I'm saying what I think. So it's much more useful to have a neutral question. Yeah.
How do you feel about
How do you feel about this issue, or what's your perception of this issue? Mm-hmm. How do you feel is focused on the feeling. Mm-hmm. Perception is more open. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So there, the linguistics. Some coaches are very often on the feeling dimension. Others will say, "What do you think?" Mm-hmm. Others will say, "What's your intuition on this?" Okay. So you can have different doors to helping the client move forward, but the more neutral, I would say, is what's your perception on this? Okay. Because it could be, the client could say, well, I feel, or my intuition is, or I think that, and then I'll have more indication of how the client's preferred perceiving channel is. Okay? Yeah. So that's between neutral and leading. Now there's other types of questions, of course. There's the questions that are practical. Mm-hmm. And that's the how questions. How do you suggest you can move forward, or how, or what is the next step about, or when you think would be the best period to do this? Mm-hmm. Where would be a good place to do it? And I like the where question more than the when question. Mm-hmm. A lot of coaches are when oriented because they want to focus on the action plan, and it's kind of driving. But if I say, very good idea, where would be the best place to do it? Or where would be the best place to meet this person to talk about what you decided to talk? When you start visualizing where to do it, you will also visualize it the best time. Yeah. Okay. So a softer way to ask when is to say where and then you'll move, because that's time-space, they go together. So that's a series, I would say, of practical questions that have a good place towards the end of a coaching sequence when it's time to move on an action plan, and so when you want the client to become practical. Another one is, who could be a very good support in this project you have? In other words, to look at supporting help in your environment. So who, what, how, when, where. Now, there's one I didn't ask, which is why. And I consider why a trap very often. Because it's a question that will ask the client to explain, and sometimes to justify, or to give, justify, give reasons, give history, give an explanation. Is going back to their frame of reference and reinforcing their frame of reference.
It wastes time.
We could say, sometimes, the question may be appropriate, but I'm very, very cautious about it, because it may be leading the client to give a lot of information, history, in the same frame of reference. So it's not a question that helps to move forward. It's a question that helps make an inventory, in a way. So I'm more focused on the operational. Now there's also rhetorical questions in standard linguistics. A rhetorical question is a question where the person who's asking the question is not necessarily waiting for an answer. Is just using the question to move forward. So I could say, what's the most important criteria today in the world economy? Well, it's, and I'll start answering the question myself. So I'm using the question as a rhetorical question. I'm not interested in your answer, basically. Now, I would say a lot of coach questions could be rhetorical, because the coach will ask the question but not really focus on the client answer. So I may ask any type of question, saying, okay, what's your next step? And the client may answer something else, not the question. And I will move to something else as if my question was just rhetorical. So what makes a rhetorical question is when the coach is not completely focused on using the client's answer. He's not following up on the question. So sometimes, I ask a question and the client will answer something else, and so I'll say, how is that related to the question, or is this an answer to my question? And then the client will really focus on the question and answer it, so my question is not rhetorical. So any question can be rhetorical, actually, depending on the real weight I put on the question and the real work the client will put following the question. So one of the dangers for coaches is they have their pet questions, but they don't listen to the answer and the quality of the answer. So it becomes rhetorical questions. Then, of course, there's other type of categories of questions, like permission questions. Before doing anything as a coach, I could say, could I interrupt you? I'm asking for permission. Or can I ask you a question? And then I'll ask a question. That's just to get the client focused and get an agreement as to my space that I will take during the question or coaching session. And coaching is an agreement-oriented approach. We need to make sure that we're playing the same tune and we agree, as we move forward. So the coach, whenever he's taking the space in the relationship, should, first knock on the door and say, may I reformulate what I just, what I understood you just said? And wait for the client to say, oh yeah, okay. And then I'll do it. Those are permission questions, and they're actually good questions to ask to remind ourselves as coaches to respect the client's space and respect the client's pace, and so on.
And to remind the client that he is responsible for his pace.
Yes, also. And that I'm just there to accompany, but it's the client's work. So that's about it. There's probably other categories in general questions.
This is how we now understand that coaching is very much a linguistic approach.
Yes.
And the question can influence so much the perspective where you take the client, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.